Imagine traveling to an unknown town out in the desert to visit a vintage old home. You participate in an auction and decide to celebrate with some friends on the bus. You notice a man with a skin-made mask and a chainsaw, and immediately you and your friends are dead. Well, in today's video, we're going to explore how to survive the bus scene in Texas Chainsaw Massacre. We'll identify a research and proven method to address an armed assailant on a bus and the mindset needed in order to survive this encounter. In order to do this, we will first break down the scenario and the plot of the movie. We'll dive deep into the scenario at hand. We'll analyze the enemy, the environment, and the weapons used by Leatherface during this gruesome encounter. We'll analyze some core strategies and apply these strategies so that we can survive the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This is going to be a good one, so let's start making some fatal decisions. Before we begin, please consider smashing that like button and subscribing if you like this type of content. Let's get started. Let's break down the movie and the scenario. 50 years after the events of the first movie, Melody, her sister Lila, and their entrepreneur friend Dante and Ruth arrive at Harlow, a small town in Texas, with the intention of renovating it. However, an old lady named Virginia claims she owns the deed to her orphanage in the town, prompting Dante to call the cops on her. Her health deteriorates, forcing the only resident of the orphanage to rush her to the hospital, along with Ruth. Melody had brought Lila with her as she felt her sister wouldn't be safe in the city. Lila had been a victim of a school shooting where she lost some of her friends. En route, Virginia dies, resulting in an awakening the true nature of the resident. He's Leatherface, back and violent as ever. He snaps the wrist of one of the cops and uses it as a weapon. Leatherface makes short work of the cops and kills Ruth, as she initially pretended to be dead but was eventually skewered by Leatherface, all of which while literally wearing Virginia's face along the way. He returns to the orphanage and murders Dante as he is still in the building. Melody survives by hiding underneath the bed as Leatherface begins his mass murder spree after getting his hands on the infamous chainsaw. There's a fight sequence between Richter, the realtor, where Richter, who comes closest to defeating Leatherface in a hand-to-hand combat, eventually dies. Harlow has been populated by potential investors who arrived on the bus, the victims at hand. They almost escape, however it looks like Leatherface was able to immobilize the bus and begin slaughtering each victim. They initially start recording Leatherface, but eventually realize that that was a fatal mistake. Lila and Melody continue to barely survive and get hope with the arrival of Sally, the sole survivor of the original film, hell-bent on revenge, starting on a full-on battle. She begins to ask him if he remembers her, only for him to walk away and start slaughtering more people. Despite Lila and Melody's desperate plea to escape the psycho killer, Sally uses them as bait to lure Leatherface out. When she confronts him, she's more concerned once again with reminding him who she is rather than quickly killing him. She is left frustrated when Leatherface doesn't really seem to remember her. Nevertheless, she attacks him, but he uses a chainsaw to impale her. She still manages to shoot him and gives Lila her gun before she dies, encouraging the young girl to kill him now or be haunted by him and to thirst for revenge like she did. Melody tells Lila to escape as she's stuck in the car, but just as Leatherface is about to kill Melody, Lila confronts him. When he escapes into a building, Lila follows him, trying to lure him out. He outsmarts her by leaving his chainsaw active and baiting her. Ambushing her, the killer attacks and drags her into the pool of water in the room. Lila manages to come out unscathed and tries to reach her gun, but Leatherface emerges from the water and drags her back. Just when it seems he'll get the better of her, Melody shows up and climbs upon him, giving Lila enough time to get her hands on the gun Sally gave her. The murderer tries to kill Melody with the chainsaw, but Lila shoots him multiple times. With no more bullets left, it looks like Leatherface will survive, but wait. Melody has picked up the chainsaw and slashes him right down the middle as he drops into the pool of water. Lila and Melody get into the car together, relieved, putting the car in autopilot. Lila jokes that she would definitely move to Harlow with her after what she has seen. Just then, Leatherface reemerges, having survived everything. He breaks the window and pulls Melody out of the car. As Lila screams from the sunroof, he uses the chainsaw to behead her in front of her eyes. In the end, Leatherface slashes the air in victory as Lila is left distraught by the tragedy and driven to safety by the car. In the post-credit scene, we see Leatherface goes back to the house from the original film instead of the orphanage in Harlow. Now that we have the plot, let's break down the scene at hand. Leatherface arrives on the bus after killing the bus driver. We then see the leader of the group begin backing up as she softly tells the group to run as she fades into the group. They start recording, but as the first person dies while recording on a live feed of the incident, they start realizing that was a big mistake. Leatherface starts to slash and lay hands on every person, each and every person on the bus one by one. Leatherface has time to kill each person on the bus individually as the members attempt to escape by banging on the windows. One person is still recording as she attempts to escape, and then we see the victim slash and then impaled by the chainsaw. Each victim is killed individually as Leatherface methodically kills and slaughters each one, culminating with the group leader being sliced in half. Melody then grabs a corkscrew that she took from Richter and stabs Leatherface in the arm as she escapes from the latch in the bathroom. Now that we have the context, let's analyze our enemy Leatherface and our environment. In order to be fair, we must analyze the situation as if we were the victims on the bus. Leatherface is roughly 48 years old as evidenced by his gray hair and looks to be around 6'5". He's wearing a skin-made mask that looks like it might impair his vision, but we don't know. He walks with a limp, but it's unclear if he can run. He's clearly strong as evidenced by the fact that he can lift a person up with a chainsaw. When killing someone, he focuses solely on the one person that he is killing. His weapon of choice is a chainsaw, however, he can use his hands to move, shove, or kill opposing characters. When analyzing the scene, we see windows on the side of the bus that slide from left to right. These windows seem hard to open or difficult to open, probably due to the blood that is on everyone's hand. The ground is filled with blood, thus making the environment difficult to navigate. We were able to see a window open up towards the end, however the leader was chainsawed in half as she tried to escape. This bus looks like a 1950 Greyhound charter bus in terms of its shape. While scanning the specs of the bus, we see that there was an exit hatch that the victims were attempting to open. However, it looks stuck, thus resulting in the victims being unable to escape. There's a top hatch in the bathroom that Melody and Lila used to escape. There are seats blocking the left and right aisle, thus making the aisle the only way to escape. Now let's get into the strategies in order to survive this encounter and analyze its merits. The closest thing that we can use in terms of strategy is an active shooter bus situation. In terms of safety policy, it outlines a series of core actions that a person must take in the event of an active shooter. Leatherface, in my opinion, is a crazy active shooter with crazy potential to kill everyone, but just not as quick as compared to a gun. Nevertheless, let's apply these strategies and survive. In the event of an active shooter, individuals are advised that they should first run. If the bus cannot drive away from the danger, evacuate as many as possible from the bus and direct them to a position out of the sight of the bus. Clear the area of students or people. Have an escape route and plan in mind. Individuals should leave belongings behind. Help people to escape if possible, however, that is not the priority. Do not attempt to move the wounded. Prevent others from entering the area as the active shooter may be crazy. The next recommended approach is to hide or take cover on the bus. Essentially, what's happening with this particular scenario, individuals or students may use a book or other objects for cover and lay as low as possible on the floor. Cell phones should be silenced. The last recommended strategy is to fight the perpetrator. As a last resort, only when lives are in imminent danger, and they were clearly in imminent danger in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Attempt to incapacitate the shooter. Drivers should use tactics to disable the shooter at hand. Act with as much physical aggression as possible. Improvise weapons or throw items at the shooter. Now let's take a moment to apply these strategies to the scenario at hand. The first strategy that we will analyze is to hide. The strategy to hide may work temporarily as evidenced with Lila and Melody, but with the lack of hiding places, the victims would have eventually died. Additionally, the act of calling for help or assistance would not work since the sheriffs all died once Leatherface awoken into his murderous rage. This strategy will fail. The next strategy is to run. Running was the first and only strategy applied in this scene. We see the victims attempt to zigzag, run, and escape into various possible escape routes. Sadly, the victims were still using their cell phones up until the final moment, and all of the escape routes were either closed or stuck. Upon first glance, this strategy failed, but this strategy could have worked if someone was able to take leadership, and most definitely with the cost of life. Imagine if the group decided to focus on one possible escape route by using the hatch, which would have allowed most of them to escape. We notice that we have the leader of the group as the only person attempting to push down the latch, while we notice one or more viewers only watching and screaming. In order to survive using this scenario, 3 or more people need to serve as shields. while multiple people attempted to push and open the emergency exit. Once open, the surviving members could have escaped and then run in various routes in order to confuse and outrun Leatherface. Remember, he's running with a chainsaw, 6'5", and has a limp, and is clearly 48 plus years old. Each person on the bus looked younger than 30 and could have outrun Leatherface. This strategy would pass if only if the survivors would work together and someone would take leadership. The last recommended strategy is to fight the perpetrator. Let's be honest, the probability that everyone will survive is probably close to zero, but with the right coordination, they could win. Leatherface is a veteran killer who has been killing and surviving death for years, but he is human. The closest hand-to-hand combat scenario in the movie where Leatherface was placed at a disadvantage was the scene with Richter. Richter may have actually survived if Melody grabbed a weapon or an object to help Richter take down a murderous villain. Within this scene, we see Richter even start to overpower Leatherface even when he broke his leg. Using this scenario, we see that Richter, despite being injured, pressed through the pain to almost take down Leatherface. When looking at the bus scene, there were over 10 to 15 people on the bus, thus putting the people on the bus at an advantage. When choosing to fight, 3 or more people could have worked to take Leatherface to the ground. Obviously, this requires leadership and coordination, but it would not require any particular skill other than the will to survive. With that said, the skill set the people on the bus choosing to fight Leatherface might have caused the death of a number of members who may be attempting to apply this strategy, but there's still merit to this approach. For example, imagine if while Leatherface was impaling the victim to the ceiling, that 7 or more members all jumped to a top and grab Leatherface. Leatherface is definitely human and reacts to pain, even though his pain tolerance is extremely high. If the members were able to grab the chainsaw from Leatherface, they could have used it to kill and immobilize our murderous friend. So in my opinion, this strategy would pass, with the caveat that 7 or more people may die as a result of this approach. So to summarize my approach, running and or fighting is the best way to go. However, in both scenarios, it requires someone to take leadership, and it would require that some people would know that they're about to die for the greater good. So what are your thoughts, and which strategy would you use? Please make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and thanks for watching.